Under the molten sky of a fading afternoon, the town of Hollow Creek lay still, half buried in dust and silence. The wind scraped across the empty street, lifting scraps of old newspaper that fluttered like lost birds. A dog barked once and vanished into shadow. The town was the kind that even the sun seemed to avoid after noon, a place of forgotten men, broken signs, and women who once had laughter in their throats, but now kept their heads down when they walked. By the water trough behind the saloon, a young woman bent low, her fingers trembling as she reached for a crust of bread someone had thrown away. She was thin in the way that life makes you thin, not by choice, but by neglect. Her hair, once auburn perhaps, was tangled and gray with dust. The hem of her dress was torn where the wind had chewed at it. She had not eaten since morning, and morning itself had been just a name for hunger. She crouched there, knees shaking, trying to make the crust last longer than her pride would allow. Her name was Ella, 24 years old, though sorrow had aged her past that. Somewhere behind her eyes lived the ghost of laughter, but it hid there now, cautious, half buried. She had wandered into Hollow Creek 2 days ago, first asking for work, then for water, then only for mercy. The town had offered none. Men looked at her with suspicion or pity, and both kinds of looks felt like stones. Women turned their faces away, afraid kindness might cost them something. So now she sat behind the saloon, eating what the horses had refused. The air shimmered as if the heat itself were breathing. That was when a tall man on horseback came down the road, boots and hat powdered in dust. He rode slow, the way men ride when they've seen too much. His coat hung heavy on his shoulders, and the sunlight caught the silver buckle at his belt. Elias was his name, 34, owner of a ranch that stretched farther than most men's dreams. Folks said he didn't waste words or smiles, that his heart had gone quiet after the drought took his family years ago. He reined in his horse when he saw her. At first he thought she was just another ghost the desert made. But then she lifted her head, and he saw her eyes. They weren't the eyes of a lost soul. They were the eyes of someone still fighting to live, no matter what the world had done. For a long moment he said nothing, just watched her, the sound of his horse's slow breathing filling the silence. She tried to stand, clutching the crust of bread like proof of her survival. Her voice cracked when she spoke. "I'm not begging, sir. Just hungry." Elias dismounted, boots landing heavy in the dust. He looked at her, then at the sky, then back again. His face was carved with lines that didn't move easily. He reached into his saddlebag, pulled out a canteen, and set it beside her. "Drink," he said. She stared at it, wary, as though a trick hid inside the word. "Why?" "Because you look like you might not see another hour if you don't." His voice was steady, neither kind nor cruel, only honest. She drank. The water ran down her throat like forgiveness. When she lowered it, he was still watching her. The silence stretched between them, long and uneasy. Then he said, almost to himself, "Lady, pack your things." She blinked. "What things?" "Whatever you got left," he said, turning toward his horse. "You're coming with me." She hesitated, mind storming with disbelief. "You don't even know my name." He looked over his shoulder. "I know enough. You're hungry. That's all I need to know." Then he mounted up again, waiting. For a moment she thought of running. The last time a man had offered her anything, cruelty had come with it. But something in his stillness, his patience, his lack of demand, made her believe he wasn't that kind of man. So she gathered her torn shawl, the small satchel that held a comb, and a folded letter she could no longer bear to read, and climbed into the wagon behind his horse. They rode in silence. The land stretched wide and endless, the color of old copper. The wagon creaked, dust lifting behind them in small clouds. Elias kept his eyes on the horizon. Ella studied his hands on the reins, the scars across his knuckles. Working hands, not cruel ones. She felt safer in his silence than she had ever felt in anyone's words. After a while she asked softly, "Why did you stop?" He didn't answer at first. Then, without turning his head, "Because I've seen that look before. The one that says you stopped expecting the world to notice." She stared ahead, tears stinging. "And did the world ever notice you?" He almost smiled. "Once. Didn't end well." The wagon wheels hummed against the earth, a rhythm as steady as breathing. The sun bled into evening, painting the world in amber and rust. When they reached his ranch, the horizon swallowed the light, leaving only the moon to guide them home. The ranch stretched wide, fences like ribs around empty pastures. A dog barked somewhere. On the porch, an old woman stepped out, Martha, gray-haired, sturdy, eyes sharp but not unkind. "Who's this Elias?" she asked, wiping her hands on her apron. "Someone who needs a roof," he said. "Fix her something to eat." Martha frowned but nodded. "You're the boss." She turned to Ella. "Come inside, dear. You look half a whisper away from falling over." Inside, the house smelled of stew and wood smoke. Ella stood awkwardly by the doorway, afraid to move, afraid to believe. Martha set a bowl in front of her. "Eat." Ella did. Each spoonful felt like memory returning, life warming its way back into her bones. When she finished, she whispered, "Thank you." Martha smiled. "Thank him. He's the one who brought you." But Elias was already in the barn, pretending not to care that someone else was breathing under his roof again. He told himself it was nothing, just decency. But decency didn't make his chest ache the way it did when he saw her hands shaking over a bowl of stew. That night Ella couldn't sleep. The bed was soft, the air smelled of hay and rain, but her heart was restless. She stepped outside and found Elias on the porch, a lantern beside him. The sky above was wide and trembling with stars. "You don't have to thank me," he said before she could speak. "I wasn't going to," she replied softly, and he almost laughed. They sat in silence. The wind moved through the grass, crickets singing where words wouldn't go. Finally she said, "You could have left me there." "Most would have." "Most did," he said. "Doesn't mean I had to." She turned to him. "Why do you care?" He looked at her then, eyes catching the lantern's gold. "Maybe because once someone found me in the dirt too, fed me, saved me. I wasn't worth saving, but they did it anyway. Been trying to repay that ever since." The night deepened, quiet and tender, the kind of silence that holds instead of hurts. Days passed. Ella began to help around the ranch, feeding chickens, mending fences, learning the rhythm of a place that didn't want to spit her out. Martha fussed over her. Tom, the stable boy, teased her kindly. And for the first time in years, she began to laugh, quietly at first, like testing a forgotten melody. Elias watched from a distance, pretending not to notice how her presence softened the air, how her voice filled empty corners. But kindness is a strange thing. It awakens both comfort and fear. One afternoon, as they worked near the corral, a storm rolled in sudden and wild. The sky cracked open, rain pouring down in silver sheets. The horses panicked, breaking free from the gate. Ella ran after them before Elias could stop her. "Get back inside," he shouted, thunder cutting his words in half. But she kept going, skirts heavy with rain, hair plastered to her face. She grabbed a frightened mare by the reins, calming it with a voice that shook but didn't break. Elias ran to her, pulling her back toward the barn as lightning split the sky. Inside they stood dripping, breathless, the air thick with the smell of rain and adrenaline. He looked at her, anger and relief tangled in his chest. "You could have been killed." She met his eyes, trembling. "You think I haven't been dying a little every day already? At least this time I tried to help." The words hit him like a blade. He stepped back, then forward again, caught between fury and awe. "You're stronger than you think," he said. She laughed bitterly. "Strong doesn't keep you fed. Strong doesn't keep you alive." "No," he said softer now, "but it keeps you human." The rain eased, dripping from the rafters. She turned away, hugging herself. "You don't know what it's like to be left with nothing." He took a slow step closer. "Don't I?" His voice cracked. "I buried my wife and son 5 years ago when the drought came. Thought I'd die with them, but the world wouldn't let me. Every morning since, I've woken up angry that I'm still breathing. Then I saw you, and for the first time, I didn't feel angry anymore. Just alive." She froze, his words sinking in like rain into dry soil. When she turned, her eyes were shining. "Why are you telling me this?" Because I can't keep pretending I brought you here out of pity. He stepped closer until only a breath separated them. Ella, I don't know what tomorrow looks like, but I know I want you in it. Her breath caught. The thunder was far away, now, gentle, as if even the sky was listening. Elias, she whispered, tears breaking free. He lifted a trembling hand, brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. You deserve to stay, he said. Not because I need you, but because you deserve somewhere to belong. For a long moment, the world held still. Then she reached for his hand and pressed it against her cheek. No one's ever said that to me before. He smiled, small and weary and real. Then let me be the first. The rain slowed to a hush. Outside, the land smelled of rebirth. Inside that barn, 2 lives long starved of warmth finally found it. By morning, the sun climbed over the horizon, gentle and gold. The ranch looked new somehow, mended fences, steady smoke from the chimney, promise of work and laughter in the air. Elias stood on the porch, hat in hand, watching Ella feed the chickens. She looked back and smiled, sunlight on her face where once there had been only shadow. He walked over, quiet as dawn. Lady, he said softly, you've packed your things. She tilted her head, smiling through tears. Now unpack your fears, he said. This is home. And for the first time in years, both of them believed it. The wind carried the scent of morning across the fields, the whisper of new beginnings hidden inside it. If this Wild West whisper warmed your heart, like and share it with someone who still believes in gentle love. Tell me, where are you watching from tonight, and which part of Ella's courage stayed with you? Until the next tale rides in on the wind, keep your heart open and your coffee warm.